Okay, Mr. Udell here with a follow-up video to the last video on congressional representation. It sort of got cut off at the end, so just by way of review, we're going to just get the terms out here. The terms we had last time were first, reapportionment, which I know I defined in the last video. That's handing out representatives to the states so that the larger states can have more representation, that more people get more representatives, and the smaller states get fewer. Then we know we had redistricting, which is the process by where we draw districts so that, as it turns out now, about every 700,000 people are going to have their own representatives. Then we know we had malapportionment, which is the process of putting too few people in one district and too many in another. And then lastly, we had gerrymandering, which was those ridiculous shaped districts to try and cram all the Democrats into one district or all the Republicans into another to make sure that we get what we want. And we will have talked about in class are some of the impacts of this. And the impacts are of some concern to our democracy. The tricks that people are using are cracking, packing, and kidnapping. Cracking, the first thing there, is to break up, if you have a large area of Democrats or Republicans, break them up. Don't let them vote together so that their votes don't count. Right? If I have 50,000 Democrats and I make it so that no more than 10,000 are in any one of 5 districts, they'll never win anywhere. On the other hand, I might use another trick, which is called packing. So packing is, I know that the Democrats or Republicans have to win somewhere. So we can go back to our slide from one of the other videos. Just erase that. So let's say that I know, for example, I have to let the Democrats win one district. And the district used to look like this, the red district, Democrat, Democrat, Republican. Now I come through and I redraw the district like this, Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. And by adding this Democrat right here, these 100,000 Democrats, this district was going to vote Democratic anyway. Those 100,000 voters were basically just wasted. All they did was help vote for a Democrat who was already going to win a Democrat. And this Republican that I had hanging out over here, he can now help me defeat Democrats elsewhere. So that's the process of packing. Cracking is just sort of the opposite. These 3 Democrats right here, don't let them vote together, right? These 2 Republicans against this Democrat, these 2 Republicans against this Democrat, and these 2 against this one. So even though I have 3 Democrats in a row, I crack them apart. And both parties do this. So where does that leave us? The impacts of gerrymandering. The first, it's undemocratic. And I don't mean that as the Democratic Party, I mean that as a small d. Anytime that I say I am wasting a person's vote, that goes against the idea of democracy. If I pack all the Republicans into one area so that their votes only go for the Republican that I wanted was going to win anyway, that's not letting the people choose their representatives. The saying that people use is, it is the voters should choose politicians. Not the other way around. Meaning that no politician should be able to say, wait a minute, you're a Republican, I don't want you voting for me. That's silly, it makes no sense. The second concern, it makes for more extreme candidates. If I'm in a district that has, we'll compare 2 districts. District number 1 has 300,000 Republicans, 300,000 Democrats, and 100,000 independents. Then when we go back to our bell curve that we've talked about before, if these are the extreme liberals over here, and these are the extreme conservatives over here, then I better stand right here, close to the middle on one side or the other, because then I'll have a chance of winning moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, and some independents. However, if I redraw that district, and I all of a sudden say I'm going to make it 500,000 Republicans, and only 100,000 Democrats and 100,000 independents, well, gee, standing here in the middle doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore because hardly anybody's over here. Almost everybody in my district starts to look very different. The average person starts to look like a bell curve like this, where the average person is way over here. Now, meanwhile, while I took all those Democrats out of this district, I probably put them in another district. So now I've created another district that's no longer moderate either, and the average person is way over here, much more liberal. So I end up electing people way over here on the liberal side and way over here on the conservative side, and not as many people on the moderate side. And when we elect people who are extreme, they have a harder time getting their job done, not to mention they tend not to represent the interests of the United States. The last concern that we have is that it reduces competition. Reduces competition. In other words, if I have a district like the one above that has 3,000 Republicans, 3,000 Democrats, and 100,000 independents, and the Democrats win an election, well, that representative better do a darn good job because he can easily be beat next time. And if the Republicans win next time because he wasn't doing the best job, the Republican better do a darn good job because she can be beat next time. However, if I change that district, and I make it 500,000 Democrats and 100,000 Republicans and 100,000 independents, what are the chances of the Democrat ever losing? It would seem to be very slim. So what are the chances, what is the need for me to do the best job possible? And the answer is it doesn't sound like it's that important. And as a matter of fact, what we've seen happen in our Congress is if you draw a very conservative district, whereas where it's happened more in this particular era, of 500,000 Republicans and 100,000 Democrats, and if you're conservative, usually the only challenge you get is if you try to compromise with the other side, someone runs to your right and says you're not being conservative enough for our district. So as a matter of fact, it reduces competition in terms of the party can win, but it does create some competition in terms of people becoming more and more extreme. So these are the three reasons that people tend to worry about gerrymandering in our society. And in class, we may have already reviewed these cartoons, or we may be reviewing them in a future class.